Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Interestingly enough, I'm virtually at two conferences at this time, the Georgia Municipal Association's winter meetings and at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So I'm kind of in three places at one time. I thank the members of City Council and the many houses of faith, local businesses, and citizens across the city who participated in last week's remembrance for those lives that have been lost during this COVID-19 pandemic. I appreciate the support shown and given to their families. It was an amazing display of love and support, and I'm sure that everyone is appreciative of everyone's willingness to show Savannah love. Savannah has endured another week that started out with great uncertainty. I thank the Savannah Police Department, the Savannah Fire Department, and our law enforcement partners at the federal, state, and local levels for their continued partnership and support. The U.S. Conference of Mayors, as I said earlier, is meeting this week, and we had the opportunity to hear from President Joe Biden, who has pledged his support of cities and assistance from his administration to deal with the issues that we are facing. We are looking forward to this partnership and support. The President, in his first executive order, required mask wearing on federal property and on federal travel conveyances. And he has asked Americans to wear a mask for the first 100 days of his administration. President Biden has also called on governors, public health officials, mayors, business leaders, and others to implement masking, physical distancing, and other public measures to control COVID-19. So again, I call on Governor Brian Kemp to issue a statewide mask mandate for the state of Georgia. It certainly makes sense. As the President told us during our meeting, masks, not vaccines, will get us through this critical time. And our actions must be comprehensive and consistent at all levels of government. The Georgia Department of Public Health, and you have to excuse this mask is running, but you can support the Second Harvest Food Bank of Coastal Georgia. The Georgia Department of Public Health is looking for volunteers to help with its COVID-19 vaccination response. Georgia Responds is Georgia's health and medical volunteer program that matches medical and non-medical volunteer skills and credentials to help stop the spread of COVID-19 in Georgia. Licensed medical volunteers, including doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and advanced EMS professionals, EMTs, intermediate and above, may be used to administer vaccinations. And we have some that are employed by the City of Savannah, and we're willing to use all of them. Non-medical volunteers may be used in administrative roles like registering individuals for vaccinations, data input, language interpretation, guidance, and assistance at vaccination administration sites and other administrative roles. To volunteer, visit dph.georgia.gov/Georgia-responds. dph.georgia.gov/Georgia-responds and click on Register Now. Prospective volunteers will be asked for their name, address, contact information, and occupation type. You are encouraged to complete a profile summary, including skills and certifications, training, medical history, emergency contact, and preferences. Once your skills and credentials are reviewed, you will be notified by a DPH representative. As you know, the Coastal Health District has temporarily paused vaccine appointment scheduling. I again want to join our public health partners in actively encouraging healthcare providers to complete the enrollment process to become vaccine administrators. The more providers who can offer the vaccine to those eligible to receive it, the better, but even as additional providers come on board, they're also going to need your patience. If you would like to sign up to be notified when the Coastal Health District resumes appointment scheduling, then or find another vaccine provider in your area, or get more information about the vaccine, you can visit covid19.gachd.org/vaccine. covid19.gachd.org/vaccine. The Savannah Cares Committee is still hosting interactive meetings with residents to gather comments, concerns, and feedback on contacts and interactions, both positive and negative, with the Savannah Police Department. The task force will interview participants individually to maintain privacy and social distancing. Those interested must make an appointment by calling or by emailing savannahcares@savannahga.gov, savannahcares@savannahga.gov, or by calling 912-650-7878, 912-650-7878. There is a session tonight that you can register for, tonight at 6 p.m. at the Southwest Chatham Library. You must be registered in advance, but there is one tonight at the Southwest Chatham Library. February 2nd, starting at noon at the Carver Village Community Center, and February 6th, starting at 10 a.m. at the Savannah Civic Center. The task force will not release the participants' identities to the public and will only use them to help in its investigation. Our Housing Savannah Task Force is also actively working on the Savannah's first housing affordability plan, focusing on housing for the average Savannian that costs less than 30% of their gross household income. They spent months researching and discussing in various housing challenges facing our city and other communities. Some of their findings have confirmed what we had suspected, that approximately 21,400 or 40% of Savannah households cannot afford housing in good condition without paying more than 30% of their income for housing. This means that households earning less than $50,000 a year or $25 hourly are likely to have a hard time affording housing. And remember, Housing Savannah is going to ensure that housing is affordable for Savannahans. Our members spent the next 2 months coming up with strategies and action items, and they hope to present their plan to City Council in April. They've made a lot of headway, and I appreciate their diligence toward this work. It's been extensive work, and I appreciate all of the time given for our task force members. Next week, we will add another seat to Savannah's table with the introduction of another task force. So I'm excited about that, and we will share details about that in the coming days. Finally, Friends of Foresight still need your ideas to help create Foresight's first ever master plan. They've reopened the survey on friendsofforesight.org, friendsofforesight.org, to get more feedback, especially from groups that were underrepresented in the first round. They particularly need input from our young people and our Black and Hispanic residents. This is the city's park, and we need to make sure we have feedback from all of our residents to help shape its future. In addition to the survey, you can post on their interactive ideas wall, and you can add comments and questions to an interactive map of the park. So that ends my prepared comments for this morning, and I will entertain any questions you may have. And I think Emma's going to be first.
I just expected that.
Yes.
Thanks, John. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
My question for you this morning, going back to the U.S. Conference of Mayors this week and talking with Joe Biden, so you're asking him to mandate masks across Georgia again. I mean, he keeps saying that he's encouraging people to wear masks, but he won't mandate it. Do you have any sense as to why?
I have no sense, none at all. I mean, it is clear. Every medical professional, to include the state's medical professionals, has said that masks are going to get us through this. we are able, and now they're saying that we should double mask. Because the mask is something that everybody can do now. We realize we can't get everybody vaccinated now. So you have to try to contain the spread. And that's what we know that masks do. Again, it creates a bipolar environment for our state, because in cities like Savannah, where there are mask mandates, in the public space, you wear a mask. You go into a business, they're not wearing or enforcing masks. We receive literally hundreds of calls from people that are going into local businesses, and they're not adhering to those guidelines that supposedly these, particularly some of our big box stores. So we'll be making some phone calls again to Home Depot, to Kroger, to Walmart, to remind them of their social responsibility from what they said as it relates to masks. I have said before, and I'll say it again, I'm not patronizing any business that does not require masks, because that tells me you don't care about your employees that work there, and so certainly you're not going to care about me.
I feel like we haven't talked about this in a little while. Do you think the mask wearing in Savannah has gotten better over the past few months?
It's a mixed bag. I think many of our residents have done better, and many of our guests don't. We found, again, we have more people coming into the city. They're coming from places that are very restrictive, and so they come and they kind of either dish the mask, or it's off their ear, or it's in their pocket. Our COVID response team and police are encountering them, and then they comply. Then the police leave, and then they might take it off again, which is why we have to be consistent across the board to make sure that the behavior is consistent no matter where we are. And that's been part of our challenge. We know that our numbers are better than the rest of the state because we've had a mask mandate since July the 1st. We want our numbers to continue to be better. We recognize that our numbers have gone up, and now with these variant strands that are out here, we're just going to have to do better. And so masks, to me, provide freedom. It doesn't restrict freedom. It allows us to remain open. And so we have to decide as a community what it is that we want. If we want to keep our community open and our economy vibrant, we're going to have to engage in the wearing of masks until we're able to get the 70% vaccination point that we're trying to reach. And right now, we're nowhere near that.
And has there still been no citations for mountain?
There have been citations written.
There have?
There have been a couple written.
Okay. And I think one of my last questions for you is just circling back to, I know you've asked the governor a few times about mandating masks. Do you know exactly how many times you've asked his office at this point?
Probably too many. Again, all I can do is ask. Again, the science up and down says that masks work. It's one thing to strongly recommend, it's something different to mandate. And now the President Trump and his White House has indicated that a mandatory mask mandate was appropriate. Now, certainly, President Biden is saying the same thing. And yet Georgia is doing something totally different. All I can do is ask, and I'll continue to ask. And I just believe that we have not because we ask not. One day I'll ask and he'll say okay, and then we can all wear masks. We can get our spread down, we can get people immunized, and we can do better and live our best lives.
And when you do ask, do you get any sort of response?
Never. But I'll keep asking because I have to keep my community safe. You just ask. I don't mean it as, to be political or be disrespectful. He's gone around the state a couple of times, strongly recommending the use of masks. He knows how important masks are. You can't come into state buildings, some without a mask on. And so we just need to expand that statewide, or just let us do this here. Let's do this here in Chatham County, and then, you know. But just for us to get into legal issues about masks, to me, is a waste of everybody's time.
We'll move a little change of subject here. We were on scene this morning of what looks like a standoff on Avery Street, Old Grove Avenue. Do you have any information about that?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Hope it wasn't over mask. Good morning.
So you talked a little bit about pulling city employees to help with vaccine, administering vaccines. I can imagine that's going to be an organized effort. So can you talk a little bit, can you go a little bit more in depth on that?
Well, I've committed to the Coastal Health District that this is a community-wide issue, and the city of Savannah has some things at its disposal that might be able to be of help. We know we have locations. We are all over the city. We have city-owned buildings and properties that might be available, as we do with the COVID testing. We have personnel that actually are able to administer vaccinations. We have paramedics and we have EMTs that might be able to do that as well. And we're just telling them, you know, tell us what it is you need. Let us see if we can help. You know, we recognize public health is a public responsibility. And so we get a fair amount of calls about people calling about vaccine issues, and we don't have anything to do with that operationally, but we can certainly help. So we stay in contact with our friends, Dr. Davis, and at the Coastal Health District, and the Chatham County Health Department, and we'll do whatever we need to do.
And the Coastal Health District is kind of encountering this problem of people coming to Savannah, people coming to Georgia that aren't from here,
right, looking
for vaccines.
Right.
And of course we know across the country, no state even has enough to cover their own population. So what's your message to people who are topping state lines to try to get vaccines here?
We love for you to visit. We love for you to eat. We love for you to tour. We love for you to stay. You just can't get a vaccine here. And so I'm hoping that the Coastal Health District and those providers will do a better job of triaging and verifying who's actually getting the vaccines. Georgia vaccines should be for Georgians. And so, we don't want to be not as hospitable as we can be, but we recognize that, they need to get South Carolina's vaccines or Florida's vaccines or Alabama's vaccines. We need to take care of Georgia first. Thank you.
Good morning, Dave.
Good morning.
I want to jump ahead to a little bit about what Alderman Lanier will be talking about later today with the homeless camps. So we know that the city funded
homeless camp?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with a homeless camp.
The homeless camps that we talked about last week coming to the veteran tiny homes on Dundee Street.
On?
Dundee Street.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess anything you know about that or conversations, talked about with the city council on what we can expect with this.
Well, we continue to move forward in providing transitional housing for chronically homeless people on Dundee Street. We believe that homeless people are people, and that everyone deserves to have a place to live. We have property that we own on Dundee Street. Some extensive work has gone into making it livable. We think it's inhumane for people to live under bridges. We think it's inhumane for people to live in forests. People should have access to clean water. They should have access to sanitation. They should have access to some type of sewer. And so this allows us to get to that point. We recognize fully that it's not enough. And so therefore we work with partners to help us to deal with this. Now, once we get past COVID, our shelters will actually be able to go back to capacity. Right now, many of our shelters are at 1/3 of their capacity. So that means there are more people on the streets. But we also recognize that the issue of housing vulnerability has been exacerbated by COVID, not only for people in shelters, but people who, were one paycheck away. All of a sudden, they have families. And we're seeing an increase of people with families, mothers and children that need a place to stay. So we recognize fully that the city is and should not be totally responsible. We'll be meeting with Chatham County soon to talk with them about their role in this, and other municipalities about their role in helping us to create solutions for people to live.
And then just curious, when we're working to put together something like this, are we going out and having conversations with some of the homeless individuals, figuring out? Absolutely. I mean, I don't believe you have the ability to really figure out what's going on unless you're talking with them. Now, keep in mind, we have a plethora of homeless service agencies that are regularly engaged with people every single day. They go out, they count them, they go out, they feed them, they go out, they see about them. So the relationships are also there. I make it a point often to talk with them because you just have to understand what their issues are from their perspective. And so we hope to do that in a bigger scale once we get past COVID-19. We just have not been able to do that because, obviously, of social distancing and concerns for their safety and ours as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
On the topic of shelters, Alderwoman Lanier is holding a news conference today at 1:30 about the special use permit request from the Salvation Army to have a shelter in West Savannah. I don't know if I've asked you, what is your position on a shelter being established there? I know that's your former district, you know it well. How do you feel about it?
My position is that the Salvation Army has been a great partner to our community. They feed people, they house people, they shelter people, they provide job training to people. They help people to do better and to get better. Their work in our community has been legendary. It's a well-run organization, and really the reality is for me is that at this point so much salt had been thrown onto this, things that are not true, rumors, fear. I've heard, we're going to have rapists in our community and alcohol. I mean, it's crazy because on one end of it you have people to say, we need help here. We need food, we need shelter, we need job training. On the other end, you have the Salvation Army that can provide those things in what's called low-wealth communities, which I reject that term, but that's the term that's been used. And so you have an organization that has shown the ability to do those things, and yet the hate is real, and it's unfortunate. Keep in mind, the most important thing is that this is land that the city does not own. This is land that is owned by the Housing Authority of Savannah, which is HUD funds. And so I'm not sure where it will go, but I do know that there's been an outrageous amount of mistruths that have been spread about not only this organization and who they serve. And I want people to remember that these are people. And yet we hear people say we don't want those people here. And if you think far enough in our history, I can remember when people said we didn't want those people here. And yet the word that keeps ringing in my mind is here, those people. For me, when we say we want to do things significant to help people, we have to be willing to help people. If it passes, I think it's great. If it doesn't, then the Housing Authority will move forward with their original plans of low and moderate income housing on that site that they own, and they'll move on that
pretty quickly, and we'll support those efforts. So, you know, it's difficult when the rumors and lies are perpetuated by people who people would think would know or should know. And, you know, it is what it is. You just learn to ride with it. You know, I just think that it's unfortunate that it's gotten to this level. You know.
So it sounds like you have faith in the Salvation Army's ability to...
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, they have shown to be good community partners. And the other, I think, two things that were told that were just really not true. There's two things. One thing is that the property is actually on the other side of 516. It is not next to Brock Elementary School as been purported. You know, it is on the other side of 516. It's land that is expansed. This is housing for the aforementioned women and children and transitional homeless, job training, food, all of those opportunities, all those things that has been said are needed there. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's been a lot of rumors said about the Weeping Time property. This is not the Weeping Time property. The Weeping Time property is behind that property, and it's owned by Bradley's Plywood. So regardless of what happens with that property, it has no effect on the Weeping Time. And so the fact is that if this doesn't happen, then the Housing Authority will build housing on it, hopefully quickly, and you know we'll meet another need. So I think when you have the ability to help control through the special use permit, control what goes on the site is better than when you don't have the ability to control and the Housing Authority can make it actually more dense than what's being proposed by the Salvation Army and the concessions that they've made thus far. So I mean, I just think it's unfortunate that their reputation has been sullied by fear and by misinformation and by rumors, and so you know, we'll just see what happens.
Thanks, sir. Last thing for me. One of our anchors snapped a picture of the Forsyth of the weekend wedding that was held. A decent number of people, ballpark at probably around a dozen at least. Most not wearing masks.
Yes.
There were couples spaced apart, but still, what's the message when our employees can see a COVID resource member approach them, talk with them, and then leave, and apparently nothing in their behavior changed in terms of wearing masks or spacing out even more? What's the message when we approach people, the COVID resource team, any of the city marshals, talk with them, but don't do anything? I know we have the ability to cite people. We've done that, as you pointed out. But is it too inconsistent at this point in your mind?
It's very inconsistent. Again, we're not trying to crash anybody's special day. I perform weddings with a mask on. I'm familiar with that event. It was not a permitted event from the city of Savannah, and I think that's important to say. My expectation to the city manager, and I'll repeat that again today, is that it needs to be enforced. You talk to them one time, the second time you come by and you start citing. And I mean, you know, if we don't set the expectation of what we expect in our community, then you get into people doing what they think is best or what they won't get caught. And then you get into issues of selective enforcement. And to me, that's absolutely unacceptable. Everybody loses when we do that. So the weather is getting nicer, and I expect the city manager to come up with a plan to deal with it. I mean, I hate that people's visit here might result in a ticket, but it is what it is. You know, we'll warn you, we'll offer you a mask, but if you engage in this behavior, to include businesses as well, particularly tour companies that are in this public space, then I think we need to go ahead and make examples to people.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you spoke about developing housing affordability plans, and I would like to know what administrations and organizations are involved in developing those plans, and what does that look like for the future of Savannah so far?
Well, our housing task force, it's called Housing Savannah, is our most comprehensive task force I think that we have on our books right now. This involves city staff, people from real estate agents and brokers to people who are in the finance and banking profession, mortgagers, people who are engaged in community development, poverty reduction, people who are engaged in disability issues, reentry issues, and they're working on really creating a blueprint that is well overdue in Savannah. We recognize as we look at the beautiful Eastern Wharf project, which is soon to be open, and other projects that are opening around our city, Savannah is becoming increasingly too expensive for Savannahans to live. It is attracting a certain type of person, which is not a bad thing. However, it is not the average Savannah is not able to access it. So I consider myself a blessed man. I can't afford to live in downtown Savannah, and I work every single day. City employees are not able to live in downtown Savannah. We did a survey maybe last year or something, and it said that like 48% of our employees live in Savannah. That means 52% of Savannahans don't live in Savannah. And I expect for that to change. We have to make Savannah affordable enough and attractive enough that our own employees will want to live here. Why go and take the money you make in Savannah to another community to help their tax base? We want you to have that money here. But we recognize that we have to make it affordable, we have to make it attractive, we have to make it safe. And so part of this task force is really to look at a variety of tools in our toolbox that we have not made use of. One is inclusionary zoning, the other one is density, and a variety of ways. And then, if you know the City Council, we've been looking at every property that we've had through an affordable housing lens as well. So, for example, the property we were looking at over on Whitaker Street, Drayton Street, that's a property that was a city institutional use. It will be affordable housing. When we look at the project out there in West Savannah, it'll either be an institutional use or it's going to be low to moderate housing. I think that if we don't look at every single property with an affordable housing lens, we'll get to the point where we're saturated and we become a place like Hilton Head, where many people who work on Hilton Head can't live at Hilton Head. We've increased our contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund to $500,000 from $150,000. Again, I think this is, we have to really look at if our community is going to get better, or if we're going to raise people out of poverty to self-sufficiency, you have to create the constructs that people need. So housing is one, food is another, and then employment. And so as we strengthen those things, we'll see people do better. So we're looking forward to their plan. Again, I know they've been working very hard, and I thank the chairs, Israel Small and Brent Grant, for their work on this. And we're just hoping that we can have a plan. And the good part about how our task force has worked is that usually it was city staff bringing us a plan, and then we go to the community with the plan. In this case, the community works the plan, and we work with them. So then when it comes to us, it's been vetted already. And so I'm excited about what that would mean for us and how we start implementing that. And if people want to develop in Savannah, they're going to have to develop with an affordable housing lens in mind. And I know I went all around the world to answer that question.
So how far along are we in these plans, and when can we expect to see changes? I'm sure it's something that's got to happen over time.
Well, we've started doing that already. Again, the property on Drayton Street is part and parcel of that. Looking at how we deal with that. When we talked about the fairgrounds, You know, my insistence is when we purchase a property that there is some affordable housing component. The property out in West Savannah, again, you know, it'll either be institutional housing or it will be low or moderate income housing, depending on what happens to that project. So you're starting to see those changes already. You have a council that I think is committed to affordable housing. You know, later we'll have the policy that just makes it, that just codifies what we do into city policy. So you're seeing changes now. You'll see more changes once it's done. Again, we're looking about April by the time that's done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Everybody good? All right, well, it's a beautiful day today, and we hope everybody wears your mask. Yes, wear your mask. And, if you see people, you see functions like that that are occurring that people are not doing, let us know. And we will come and we will mask down on that parade. So, good to see you all. Thank you so much. May God bless you. May God bless the city of Savannah.